she said. Joining me now is now Right on Crime Executive Director and former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman. Brett, I just can't believe that somebody would actually suggest that more cops would make things worse.
Well, David, I sure would like to see the adults back in the room. I guess we'll wait a little longer until that happens. The reality is that you can't simultaneously send the message that cops are bad, evil, and we don't need them, and we don't want to fund them, and at the same time indicate that you're not going to hold individuals in custody pre-trial even if they're a risk to the community, and expect that those that are inclined to commit crime are going to be deterred in any way. And so what we're seeing is an absolute reaction to the horrific emotional policies rather than thoughtful, importantly researched and data-driven criminal justice policies. And that's why New York is suffering right now.
What must be really discouraging to the men and women in blue who are brave enough to walk these streets and walk through the subways at 1 and 2 in the morning to try to prevent crime, that she actually got 70% of the votes in her district for re-election. That somebody who believes that more cops equal more crime got 70% of that. That must really discourage the cops.
It has to. My father was a peace officer. He told me that his greatest pride was knowing that he was doing something to keep people safe, and I think that's what they thrive on. And police officers in this country, far and large, are incredible servants to their communities and care very deeply about it. It has to be frustrating. I'm sad for the officers that have had to leave the profession. I hope that we can turn this around and that we'll start to see improved policies that start to reduce crime and increase community safety.
You know, what she says is basically the same thing that the whole socialist squad says, and they won by similar numbers on Tuesday. And it's just, this is anecdotal, but these people have a lot of private security. Congresswoman Bush spends, I don't know, $200,000, $300,000 a year on her own private security force. They live in such a cocoon, separated from the hoi polloi, the rest of us who actually have to deal with these criminals day in, day out. I mean, they really don't get a sense of what's happening. I don't think. Do you?
I don't. There's a double standard, especially for those that go into Washington, D.C., and they start to work in that bubble. They start to forget where they come from. I spent 4 years as chief counsel in the Senate, and I saw it, and I observed firsthand. That's the reason I didn't want to run for office, and I told my friend Mike Lee, I sure hope you'll stay grounded, which I think he has. It's very difficult when you're in Washington, D.C., to have a perspective that appreciates your neighbor and your community still.
And, even the prosecutors, and of course, particularly those Soros finance prosecutors like Alvin Bragg in New York City, like Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, who are, even though they're supposed to be dealing hand in glove with the police as part of the whole law enforcement unit. That's what law and order is about. You have the police on the front line, then you have backing them up the prosecutors. In many cases, the prosecutors are not backing them up at all. They're, in fact, putting a target on their back.
Data indicates very clearly, David, that the only deterrence is the predictability of prosecution, predictability of investigation and prosecution. So if you have a DA that goes about it like we're seeing in the wrong-headed way, you're going to send a message, a very clear message, and notwithstanding all the cops you have, you're going to struggle because what you've said to the community is, we are not going to protect you from those who want to commit crimes. I've served for 20 plus years in the criminal justice system. I've never seen worse policies. There are plenty of things to fix that improve safety in this country. And these prosecutors are not hitting one single area correctly.
And we all know what works. That's the real crime here, is that we know what works. We know that when you stop the revolving door of justice and put people in, violent criminals who shouldn't be out, don't get out. When you have proactive policing, you crack down on the so-called small crimes like shoplifting. When you do all those things, you eventually get less crime. We saw it happen in New York and elsewhere.
When AOC indicated the data on the rising crime or lack thereof, I don't know where she's getting that. What I've seen is since 2019, murders, assaults, aggravated assaults are up over 40%. Now, that's a staggering number. It's a number that makes people afraid. And we better start changing our policies, being honest about the data, and putting people in office that are willing to do so.
Yeah, I think you're right. Brett Tolman, good to see you, my friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.